What's up, everybody? Wow, what a new opening. Hey, I like our old opening. I like our court opening better. We got to find out where that went. Welcome, everybody, to Tuesday's night Celebrity Court. Tonight, we're going to pull back the curtain on the celebrity elite, those who live in glass mansions and throw stones at justice. Now, listen, this isn't just about salacious headlines. It's about the uncomfortable truth that fame, influence, and millions of dollars can blur the lines between innocent and immunity. From hip-hop legends accused of abuse to billion-dollar media moguls using courts like playgrounds, we are witnessing the moral unraveling of modern celebrity. But don't get it twisted. We're not here to gossip. We're here to examine the legal cracks beneath the glamour. Can we still trust the systems designed to protect the vulnerable when they're weaponized by the powerful? Ooh, let me ask that one more time. Can we still trust the systems designed to protect the vulnerable when they're weaponized by the powerful? Think about that. Should celebrity influence be a shield or a spotlight? And when do they flip-flop? These aren't just court cases, they're cultural indictments. So buckle up, because tonight we're going to bring receipts, we're going to bring hard questions, and we are going to zero loyalty to unchecked power. Welcome to Celebrity Court of Public Opinion on this Tuesday night. Let's welcome our legal beagles that are going to be joining us tonight. First up, author of Shit They Didn't Teach You in Law School, Attorney Jason Weiss. Welcome back to Celebrity Court.
Thank you, Your Honor. Excited to be here. Let's get going.
Also joining him is that fiery civil attorney, Shawn Turner. Shawn, come on in here in Celebrity Court.
Hey, Your Honor. How you doing? I'm sorry I had to miss last Thursday. I was kicking it.
I bet you were. I saw the pictures. And last but not least, humorist at law, Shawn Carter. Shawn Carter, get in here to Celebrity Court.
Hey, algoritors. Let me take off my glasses like Shawn. I won't be able to see nothing, but how many pair of glasses you have, Shawn?
Oh, they're a numerous pair.
I can tell. All right.
All right. We want to welcome Tanya Kelly. Welcome to Celebrity Court. SL, Brenda O, Johnny Solo. Welcome to Celebrity Court. Typhia, welcome to Celebrity Court. Danielle Cameron. Welcome. Tina Twine. Welcome. Kenny Black. Welcome. Jessica Brooks. Welcome back to Celebrity Court. SL, welcome back to Celebrity Court. All right, everybody, be sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. If you're already subscribed, be sure to hit the share button and invite some folks over to learn about the law on the back of these crazy celebrities. Also, don't forget to turn on your notification. And as always, get ready to jump down into the comments, because we want to hear all the things that you have to say about these new suits. First up, rapper Fat Joe. Oh, no. He's facing a disturbing $20 million lawsuit from his former hype man, Terrence T.A. Dixon. Now, Terrence alleges decades of coerced sexual abuse, financial fraud, and violent intimidation. But this is what is the most shocking claims, is that Fat Joe engaged in sex acts with underage girls and used gifts, trips, and even cosmetic surgery to manipulate the minors, offering one of them a BBL. Now, Rock Nation and two associates are named as co-defendants, and they are accused of helping to cover up the crimes. Fat Joe's legal team denies the allegations outright, calling the lawsuit a retaliation for an earlier legal dispute. But in the era of mounting allegations against hip-hop royalty, the case is lighting up discussion around industry silence and complicity. All right, let's go straight to our lawyers on this. I'm going to start with you first, Attorney Carter. How does okay, what's going on? Somebody needs to mute their mics. We hear a whole lot of moving around. Mute your mics, please. All right, Attorney Carter, how does the justice system verify, how do you verify historic claims of sexual abuse with minimal physical evidence? Because from my understanding, Terrence T.A. Dixon is saying that he was forced to have sexual relations with people that he didn't want to. Talk to me, how does that become an illegal criminal activity?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. This is the whole Diddy case, right? The whole Diddy argument.
Okay, hold on, Attorney Carter. Something's going on with your audio. Let's move to you, Attorney Weiss. Tell me, and I'll ask the question again while he gets his audio together. How does the justice system verify historic claims of sexual abuse with minimal physical evidence?
So here's the thing, right? This is all in the civil side, not the criminal. So it's in the civil side, and they're going ahead and they're focusing on what he did. Look, this whole P. Diddy situation has made it so that everybody who ever may have had a claim, may have had an allegation, may have had a run-in with a celebrity is now going ahead and trying to bring it into, the court of public opinion, right? So he is suing for $20 million in a court of public opinion is where this is going to be held, because of the fact that in his pleadings, he's making allegations having to do with Fat Joe doing things to underage girls, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds. And the whole situation has to do with the fact that, Dixon wasn't the one who was harmed because of this. Dixon is throwing all of this out there for the wow factor so that everybody could go ahead and go, oh my God, wow. Oh my God, wow. And Fat Joe would have to turn around and say, I got to settle with this guy quickly because I don't want more BS.
Other stuff to be asked. All right.
Now, the one thing I was going to say is that, Dixon needs to be cognizant of the fact that accusing Fat Joe of doing something in the media, in wherever is out there, can be, like Attorney Carter likes to say, his friend per se. It could potentially be defamation per se. And I say potentially because Attorney Carter in Chambers corrected me, and I'm not stealing his thunder.
No, and here's the thing is, so remember, he's bringing two claims, all right? One claim is that he saw Fat Joe do all this stuff with underage girls, which has nothing to do with him, and he can't sue on their behalf, all right? The other thing he's saying is that Fat Joe made me sleep with all these women as his wingman all those years. And by the way, I don't know who's going to give him $20 million for that. All right, I've been trying to find somebody to let me be their wingman for the last 30 years. All right, I'm sorry to say it. All right, think about it. What jury is going to say, "Oh, you poor baby, you had to sleep with all of Fat Joe's leftovers"? And he says, by the way, 4,000 times.
4,000 times
in 16 years. I did the math. That's 250 days a year. He was out there wingmanning for Fat Joe,
slinging it for Fat Joe.
Thank you. I don't know about you, but that's hell of a job. All right, that's basically a full-time job, 5 days a week, to go ahead and sleep with women for Fat Joe. If he's hiring, I'm putting my application in. All right.
How is it 4,000 times? And then how is he saying he did that, but he's also claiming he didn't get paid because he's claiming financial fraud and in the fraud.
Exactly. So he's saying that he didn't get all of his money for both. Fat Joe owed him more money, and also he's saying he wrote some of the songs. Now, I've heard Fat Joe's discography. I wouldn't claim hardly none of that stuff, but he want to claim it to get his songwriting credits. So I get that. All right. And maybe there is a dispute there. But the reason he brought in the underage girls has nothing to do with him. And it's basically a good way. And by the way, algorithms, this is what we talk about in Chambers. This is a great thing for you to be able to do. If you want to slander someone, libel them, say horrible things about them, if you put it in the pleading of a lawsuit, you can't be sued for defamation.
Explain that to me, Attorney Carter.
Basically, the courts want you to have the ability to be able to bring your claims to court. So if they turn out to be false, all right, then you don't have a liability as an individual for defamation. Now you will if he goes on a podcast next week, which he will, and then says those same claims. Now you have defamation. But anything you say in a court filing is exempt from the defamation laws.
So let me understand this. So when
exempt from defamation law, but not exempt from the court saying you abuse the court privilege, that you're not allowed. It's a frivolous pleading. So you could still be sanctioned by the court, penalized, smacked on the wrist, but it is not defamation per se or per se. based on what Attorney Carter just said.
So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. So because we know when a lawsuit is filed, right, we know that becomes public record. Right. And from public record, that's where a lot of journalists pulls their content as they cover whatever the person's being charged for. You're saying to me that in that public record can be things that are not true.
Well, they could be not true, but it's not defamation per se. When you're going ahead, remember, celebrities and people that are held to a high to a higher level, they get extra protection if it's harming their business, their reputation, all of that. So if a statement is not accurate in a court pleading, you can't be sued for defamation per se, but you can still get in trouble with so many other things.
I got it. Okay, let's go to you, Attorney Carter, real quick, and let's talk about why did he make mention of Roc Nation and what was the importance behind that? Because I want to know, what are the legal obligations of record labels when they're implicated in sexual assault cases? Do they have liability for, in this particular case, the record label in general?
I'm gonna tell you, I think Attorney Turner can speak with this a lot better. Let me just say that generally speaking, the record label would only be responsible to the extent that they had some knowledge or set up some culture. So if you're doing all these things at the Roc Nation headquarters, you're doing them at parties, promotions they put together, they can have some what's called vicarious liability because you're responsible as the employer. But generally speaking, and maybe Attorney Turner will explain it better, do you think that the label is going to have any problem here?
I don't think so. I think they're probably going to be able to get out on a motion to dismiss. He didn't work for them. And so this lawsuit is actually an exercise in what to do if you can't stand your boy anymore, right? Because his goal is to foul up that life. He is. So he wanted to say a bunch of bad things. He didn't want to get sued for defamation. So he threw it in a document that's a matter of public record that got picked up by the media. So now everybody knows that Fat Joe is allegedly a dirtbag. And all of the things he's been saying about what a strong relationship he has with his wife for all these years was apparently bollocks, at least according to these pleas. Right. So the other part is that he wants Fat Joe to be disfavored in his career because he's saying that Fat Joe didn't give him creative credit with some records that he collaborated with. Now, I never heard that song Ice Cream until tonight, and you'd be surprised they are not talking about Neapolitan. And I don't know why they keep putting this picture of Fat Joe up here where he looks like he's somebody's auntie. I don't know why he's got that scarf on his head. Anyway. But so he threw in Roc Nation because Roc Nation benefited from these songs getting recorded. They made money off of them. He's saying that Fat Joe didn't give him credit. And so by extension, that they're responsible for him not getting paid. And the other thing that Attorney Carter was saying is that these alleged sex acts that he was forced to do. So here's the other thing. They were boys. And he worked for him from 2005, I think, to 2022. And in that time, he was completely sober, according to his lawyer, didn't do drugs, didn't do alcohol, and has crystal clear recollection about how his sober self was forced to engage in all these unwanted sex acts. And he's got receipts, he says. So I think that his ability to at least throw more stuff at the wall is going to become more evident because he was sober all that time, they said. So
okay, I have two questions that are from the chat, and I'm bringing these questions to the platform because they are important to answer. So Christine R said, so you can force a dude to get his wee hard and have sex. Since when? Does anybody want to address this? Because you know how people say when women are sexually taken advantage of, if they have an orgasm, they were taken advantage of. I mean, that they weren't really taken advantage of. They really wanted it. Can someone talk into the space of how the law affects this right here? So just because the penis gets hard and they have sex, if he didn't want to have it, even though his penis got hard, it's still considered wrong.
It's not an excellent defense. Yeah, either way, I mean, it's misunderstood in the court of public opinion that, I mean, there was this congressman a while ago that's saying if somebody got pregnant, they couldn't have been raped because the body makes it more welcoming for the implantation to happen, that men can't be raped because they get hard and so they have to be aroused. And that's just not proven. Some of it is just involuntary because of what's happening, and it doesn't mean that you wanted it. So it could be self-preservation.
All right, Jessica Brooks, thank you for the super chat. We greatly appreciate it. Another good question was brought to by Riri. Riri says, how do they determine celebrity in regards to those lawsuits as it relates to, and somebody else asked it too. Oh, here we go. How do they determine celebrity in regards to defamation laws?
You mean in terms of, I think it goes to your point, Attorney Weiss.
Yeah, it has to do with the defamation per se. So you don't need to be a celebrity, but you've got to be some sort of public figure. You've got to be someone out there. It's got to hurt your business, your reputation, and you know, you're a known person. So like, you know, a local celebrity on a local news station in South Florida may not be a celebrity in California, but here in South Florida, and we'll see it in some of the content later, she is a local celebrity. So if you said something bad about her, then it would be considered defamation per se, at least here in South Florida.
It's like my cousin Betty Davis, who's a meteorologist down there on ABC.
Wait, your cousin's Betty Davis? She is awesome. She is. Awesome.
Also, quick question. If the minors were involved, the minors that this hype man is talking about, if minors were involved, could Fat Joe face federal charges beyond the civil suits?
Of course, if the government decides to pick it up.
Yeah. Sometimes criminal cases come after the civil one. That's what happened with Cassie and Diddy, remember? She had her civil case, and then the feds became aware of this evidence, and they started investigating, and here we are. So that could also be part of this motivation by the lawyer and TA, that they want to
cause a bigger storm.
Yeah, because he's clearly big mad at Fat Joe, and he wants Fat Joe to go down.
Yeah, and it's so counterproductive to me, though, and so ridiculous. This man cannot go, Tia Dixon, the plaintiff, cannot go into court and say two things. One, he made me sleep with all these women, all right? That's going to be hard for anybody to believe. And by the way, it's one thing, I'm not saying that a man can't be forced to have sex. I'm simply saying it's very difficult in our society to believe that any man has been forced 4,000 times to have sex with women. All right. And two, even more importantly, here's what he's got to say. He's got to sit up there and have a lawyer ask him, so for the last 16 years, you saw Fat Joe being inappropriate with underage women, and you didn't say anything.
Yep. So
now you want people to give you $20 million because you allowed these girls to be abused.
I think I will say this though. I think the way when I watched the rollout of this is what this says to me. He tried to get his money that he was owed. Clearly, he's owed some money. And Fat Joe was like, kick rocks, go. You know, I turned you on. I put you in these spaces. You got plenty of, you know what?
There you go. Absolutely.
Thrown to you night and day. We took care of you. You ate with us. You flew with us. You traveled with us. You went to the clubs with us. Blah, blah, blah. He was like, no, man, but I need my money. So he probably will get a couple of $100,000 out of this just to stop him from unveiling all the years of the crazy stuff that they used to do, that given this Diddy case, Fat Joe simply does not want the heat from. That's what I see here. I don't see necessarily a case for him, but I do see this as an opportunity to get paid for some of his indiscretions, because he, depending on how this Diddy trial goes, it's going to determine how much further this goes. If Diddy, sorry, you know what I'm saying?
But here's the thing that I think is going to be interesting for settling cases going forward. And I've been thinking about this ever since the Harvey Weinstein cases came, when they blew up non-disclosure agreements and everybody started talking and they became disfavored. what the Diddy case should show people is don't pay people off, because you might still have to defend the criminal case. So Cassie got what, $20 million, and now
30.
she's 30, and now she's the star witness in his criminal case. He would have been better off telling her to go kick rocks, like Attorney Carter said, and waiting until he, was up on federal charges. He's no better. He was no better off by paying her off, and he's no worse off now. And so for Fat Joe, this might be why he's taking this tactic, saying, I'm not paying TA anything, because now that these facts have been leaked into the public record and might invite criminal inquiry, I'll just take my chances.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, Shaitan. I'm saying that what he might do, though, in order to silence him, because if this young man has had the opportunity to sleep with 4,000 women, he's been with Fat Joe a long time. He knows where those bones are buried. So he's probably leaked a little bit, but has so much more to reveal if he doesn't make him go away, is all I'm saying.
Right.
All right,
I think he leaked a lot of it.
Let's take it to our algorithms, please. Let's take it to the algorithms. Algorithms, do you believe the music industry has been complicit in hiding abuse, or is this a case of vengeance masquerading as justice? All right, algorithms, jump down in the chat. Let me ask the question one more time. Do you believe the music industry has been complicit in hiding abuse, or is this case with Fat Joe one of vengeance masquerading as justice? As you jump down in the chat, let's keep it moving. Rock Nation's back in celebrity court again. This time, the CEO, Desiree Perez. Yes, Rock Nation CEO, Desiree Perez, the one that Donald Trump, who pardoned her?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, who Donald Trump pardoned, is being sued by her daughter, Desiree Hadley, who claims Perez used her influence to have her wrongfully institutionalized under Florida's Baker and Marchman Acts. The lawsuit alleges Perez manipulated law enforcement, fabricated domestic abuse allegations against Desiree's husband, and sought to destroy her daughter's marriage through coordinated legal sabotage. Now, Perez has not publicly responded in detail, but body cam footage and medical records seem to back parts of Desiree's claims. The lawsuit underscores how legal tools meant to protect mental health can be misused, like some say are happening with Wendy Williams, especially by those in positions of influence. Bailiff, let's see what you got.
Legal action after she says she spent nearly 2 weeks in mental health institutions for no legitimate reason. She claims in a recently filed lawsuit that it was orchestrated by her own mother, and others who should have protected her failed her. NBC6 investigative reporter Amy Viteri has her story.
So legally, I can go home.
No, you cannot.
Why?
Because you're being Baker acted.
Body camera video shows the moments Broward deputies encouraged Desiree Hadley to get into this pickup truck with people she says she didn't know.
I can't ride with you and you guys take me?
You're going to be in handcuffs, the dog's not going to be able to come?
No, I don't want to be in handcuffs.
Okay.
Desiree says they took her to a hospital for a mental health evaluation after this doctor signed paperwork saying she was a risk to herself.
What he told me was, we received a call from your family that you tried to OD the night before.
A doctor she says she'd never met before. And according to Desiree, it's her own mother who's behind it. In this lawsuit, she claims her mother, Desiree Perez, used unlawful means to have Desiree falsely detained under Florida's Baker Act and Marchman Act.
So she's the CEO of Rock Nation, a company that she owns along with Shawn Carter, the famous rapper Jay-Z.
The complaint alleges a conspiracy, saying Perez used her money, power, and influence to tear apart Desiree and her husband, Javon Hadley, and created an enterprise of individuals to effectuate her plot.
To essentially try to separate me from my husband and to falsely accuse him of domestic violence.
Perez has repeatedly denied these allegations in court filings. A month before Desiree filed her complaint, we found her mother filed her own lawsuit against Demore's husband, Javon. Citing evidence, Perez says he has abused her daughter for years, something the couple has denied in court records. In that lawsuit, Desiree Perez says she moved to Baker Act her daughter, fearing she was at risk of suicide and abusing prescription drugs.
I haven't seen anything in my entire 20 years of practicing law that it is so clear that someone did something wrong.
Attorney Hilton Napoleon is representing DeMore in the lawsuit, which claims Perez harassed the couple for years, including making unfounded claims to get Javon arrested on multiple occasions for battery and domestic violence, charges prosecutors did not pursue.
The state attorney's office wrote a 11-page scathing closeout memoranda, which basically said that her mother made false allegations to the police.
In this closeout memo, a prosecutor with the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office cites DeMore's lack of cooperation and raises concerns about some of the evidence and how it was obtained. The prosecutor also wrote DeMore was wrongfully Baker acted last year, something her mother's attorney disputes in this letter, challenging many of the memo's other conclusions.
I have 3 different collateral sources of information that say that she's been acting psychotic, that she threatened to overdose yesterday.
DeMore's lawsuit alleges her mother conspired with prominent psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Bober, seen here in body camera video, and others to have DeMore committed for a mental health evaluation. Bober cites supporting evidence from her family and diagnosed DeMore with an unspecified psychosis. He ordered she be taken to Memorial Regional Hospital, where he is chief of psychiatry, and where results from drug tests taken upon admission were negative, according to records DeMore shared with us.
They told me your tox screens came out negative, and I go, I know. I don't do drugs.
In a statement, Dr. Bober's attorney said DeMore was placed under the Baker Act for 38 hours due to the potential risk of imminent harm she posed to herself, adding failing to take appropriate action would have been a breach of Dr. Bober's ethical and professional obligations. While DeMore was at Memorial, her mother further petitioned to have her transported to a different facility under Florida's Marchman Act, claiming again in court records that DeMore suffered from severe drug abuse. A judge granted that petition.
They ran the test. They knew that she had no drugs in her system and she was not using drugs. And the fact that you can't do anything about it is scary.
DeMore was sent to this treatment center in Deerfield Beach, where Dr. Bober serves as medical director.
Where are the people that are supposed to protect me from this happening?
According to her lawsuit, DeMore requested a hair follicle test at that facility called Life Skills, which detects drug use for at least the past 3 months, and which showed no drugs had been in DeMore.
This is insane. I'm going to go to you, Attorney Turner, if you could join us back over here really quick. Let me ask this quick question. What legal recourse does someone have after being wrongfully held under mental health laws?
They have the recourse that she's attempting to avail herself of, which is to sue someone civilly for false imprisonment. This is going to be a steep burden. So what happens under the involuntary commitment laws is that somebody has to witness the behavior that leads to the person being considered for involuntary commitment. And then they get examined like she did. So what she describes actually is not unusual. In like, there's some salacious parts of it, but having someone make a call and say that, you know, Jane Doe, I'm not going to use myself because I don't want to jinx myself, but that Jane Doe should be involuntarily committed because they articulated suicide ideation or they use drug use. The interesting thing is Florida has 2 different ones, mental health and substance abuse, which is actually great because in states that don't have the substance abuse laws, families often complain that they can't get their family treatment because, you know, you sober up and so you don't otherwise meet involuntary commitment standards. What's confusing about this one, the way it's reported, is that they're talking about the Baker Act, but then they're talking about that she was tested for, you know, a tox screen. And so I think what they're saying is that she attempted an overdose, which was a cry for help and was an expression of suicide ideation. And that's why she was evaluated. But she's going to have to show that her mother acted in bad faith. So one of the things that I find interesting about this whole thing is, one, Desiree Perez is CEO of Rock Nation, right? And she's a gangster. So she got pardoned by Trump for some issue she got into in 1990, conspiracy for, you know, distributing drugs. So she is nobody's shrinking violet, and she's about that life. At least she used to be. So the notion that she has nothing better to do other than harass her daughter and her daughter's husband seems far-fetched to me. So what I suspect, I don't know, and I don't want to disparage anyone, but I suspect that there's some truth here, because otherwise I don't think she would have been pursuing it. But it's interesting. She sued a lot of people, and I guess because her mother lives in New York and she's in Florida, that's why they're in federal court. Because one way that you can get into federal court is from what they call diversity jurisdiction. And that involves when, not diversity like DEI, but diversity like people live in 2 different states. And therefore, that's one of the mechanisms for getting into federal court.
Okay, before I pass it back to you, Attorney Weiss, because I want you to explain this Florida's Baker Act. I want to go to you, Attorney Carter, real quick. Let's go to this doctor and how I personally can see that doctor looks slimy to me. Sorry, that's my opinion. Allegedly, he looks slimy to me. And he looks like he's someone that could be paid off, because it's so interesting that she got transferred to his medical facility when there are hundreds of medical facilities in the state of Florida and in South Florida. So I don't understand why it went directly to his medical facility. Can manipulation of state legal systems for personal gain result in criminal charges is my question. Because obviously there was some manipulation here, or it feels like some manipulation was done by the mother.
Well, and let's work on that premise that she manipulated. I'm not sure there's criminal charges to be brought here. As far as state facilities, these are pretty much private and quasi-private and public entities. The real question though you have is this though, is how you got Attorney Turner brought this up. Why would the mother do this? She got better stuff to do, right? Doesn't she have better things to do? That's my thought originally. But here's the thing about it is, Sister Perez, she got lots of time. She had time to go get that pardon from Trump. And I don't want to, it's not a big deal, but it is important because it shows she got convicted in 94, right? For an offense. She then goes on to co-found Rock Nation, to do all this stuff. It's never bothered her. And still, she's willing to deal with Trump, do whatever you have to do to get a pardon from Trump. And it's not easy. All right. You got to do some Diddy stuff to get a pardon from Trump, right? She was willing to do that to get this thing expunged from a record that nobody was even thinking about. And the reason I bring that up is she shows that she can major in minor things, and that she will go whatever length she needs to go to get them done. So if to the extent that she wanted to break up her daughter from this man for whatever reason, I can totally see her hypothetically doing any of these things. They won't be crimes, but they could be false imprisonment, and her daughter might get some of that Rock Nation money.
Is it me, or we're just seeing the true underbelly of the industry? Like everybody who's in these great positions making millions, Rock Nation, that is millions of dollars, are really underground slime baskets. Like they really are bad people. Like this is really becoming too much to process at one time. And then talking about processing, all right, Attorney Weiss, tell me, what exactly is this Florida's Baker's Act? How was her mother able to manipulate it so easily? And what does a person do when you are going through an experience like this, when someone is using the law to manipulate your freedom?
All right, so they talked about 2 things. They talked about the Baker Act and the Marchman Act. The Baker Act is also known as the Florida Mental Health Act, and it allows for an involuntary, yes, involuntary examination and treatment of individuals with severe mental health crisis. You can hold the person for 72 hours so that you can evaluate and stabilize them so they can no longer pose a danger to themselves due to the mental illness. Now, the Marchman Act, it was formerly known as some Marchman Alcohol and Other Drug Services Act or something like that, provides the legal framework for the involuntary assessment and the treatment of people that are suffering from some sort of substance abuse. And you can get a 5-day hold, and you can extend it up to 60 days. So all you have to do, we'll use the Wendy Williams case as an example, is allege that she is going to hurt herself. In Florida, if you have enough more than just, oh, I think she's going to hurt herself because it's a Tuesday. No, I think she's going to hurt herself because she's doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and there's a checklist that you can check. Chances are you're going to be able to get in front of a judge and you're going to get a 72-hour hold, and you're going to be held against your will. Tough. There's nothing you can do about it.
Do they have to pay? Do they have to pay to bring these accusations forward to the courts? And if so, how much does that cost?
Sometimes you do. There's usually a filing fee. It's $400 to $500. But if you're claiming there's indigent status or something along those lines, the courts will allow you to go ahead and get it either reduced or for free. They don't want to make the accessibility to helping somebody unduly burdened by tacking on a fee that some people can't pay. Look, when the Baker Act is used properly, it's a very effective and good thing. I'm not saying proper or improper in this case, but when it is effectively used and properly used, it does a lot of good.
Okay, let's go to the algoritors. If a parent is powerful enough, let's go to the algorithm. Sorry, Sultan. If a parent is powerful enough to institutionalize you, then who protects you from them? That's my question. Algoritors, if a parent is powerful enough to institutionalize you, who protects you from them? That's a good question. What were you going to say, Shaitan?
Well, I mean, it could have been her boss. It just happened to be her mother. Anybody who hears you or observes you engage in behavior that they think is going to harm yourself or others can make the report. That's the whole thing. And so when we talk about whether her mother acted in bad faith, really what they need to show is that her mother didn't believe that she was making a credible report, right? And I have a feeling that what we're going to find is that Desiree thought she was absolutely right. She thought the girl was a danger to herself. The fact that the facts proved that she wasn't under the influence, that's not the only standard, right? You don't have to be right when you make the report. You just have to believe that it's true. You make it in good faith. So it used to happen, like, if you go back to like the 60s and the 70s before the Mental Health Procedures Acts were passed in a lot of these places, and the Baker Act, I think, is even more recent, people were committing people all willy-nilly because they didn't have controls. In this case, and in modern times, there are controls. And the control is, as Attorney Weiss articulated, there's a medical examination that determines whether or not it's credible. But the state doesn't want to run the risk that someone makes a report that you're a danger to yourself or others. They disregard it, and then you go and you kill yourself or you kill someone else.
Got it. Okay, we got to move on. Sorry, got to move on. All right, everybody, be sure to hit that like button. If you've already hit the subscribe button, be sure to hit the share button and invite friends over to watch the show. Don't forget to turn on your notifications. And as always, continue to bring the heat in the chat. Christine R. says, Cat Williams sat on that man's couch and changed the world. My goodness. Kenny Black said industry is a bunch of former street people who still move like they are in the streets. Isn't that true, Kenny? I agree with that. Jalen says the industry has always been pure trash. And last but not least, Danielle Cameron says, how we ain't know her mother wasn't protecting her daughter from a no good man. I don't know. That seems pretty extreme to me. But
that's a good theory, because if the daughter loves him, right? Because we know women can make some bad decisions when it comes to their love lives. The one thing about an involuntary commitment that you get, that 72 hours, she knows her daughter's safe. So there's this history of abuse that we can't disregard. I'm sorry, Attorney Carter.
No, and we have to talk about this. We're going to give some bad advice to algoritors. That is not the way you handle the situation, because your sister won't leave that crazy ass man. You can't have her locked up and committed, all right, make all kind of false affidavits in court because she's crazy and suicidal. All right. Now, if you said she was being beat by her husband, you call the police out and you can file, domestic violence charge, but you can't make up false stuff about other people saying they're crazy and that they need to be committed so that you can get them away from their crazy. Because I got to tell you, every woman I know is with somebody they probably shouldn't be. If you might have my little sister, you watching, you need to get away from Tyrone. You know damn well you need to get away. I ain't gonna have her committed. Tyrone, you know you ain't shit. But that ain't the point. The point is, I can't have people committed just because you don't.
Order. No, he's exactly right. If that was the strategy, then Desiree broke the law.
All right, we got to keep it moving, lady. By Legal Beagles, we got to keep it moving. Third topic of the night: billionaire media mogul Byron Allen sued McDonald's for billion. You heard me correctly, $10 billion, alleging racial discrimination and ad spending. He claimed McDonald's isolated Black-owned media to a token ad budget and systematically excluded his company from national campaigns. The case didn't make it to trial because you want to know why? McDonald's settled, issuing a joint statement with Allen committing to a new partnership. While the details remain confidential, Allen has declared it a victory for Black-owned media. Yet critics argue it may have simply polished the company's image without real reform. All right, let's go to you, Attorney Carter. Talk to me about this. What legal grounds support racial discrimination claims in ad purchasing in this case, you think?
It's the civil rights law. The code section is 1983. These are always the cases that are brought under this section. And you basically can sue private individuals because they don't have the right to make contracts based on racial discrimination. And so Byron Allen is saying, hey, I have all these black stations. I'm a black station owner. I got all these stations, and you won't advertise on our stations, or at least not at the rate that you will on the white stations, because I'm black. Although I got to tell you, until he told me, I didn't know he was black. But that's beside the point. All right. All right. He probably should not be the symbol of blackness in America. But aside from that, he does this a lot. He did this with Comcast. They wouldn't put his crappy stations on. And so he was like, hey, y'all don't do this because I'm black. No, we don't do this because you got pet TV. All right. You got the judge shows that won't even even BET won't run. All right. You got crappy, but it's working for him. He keeps getting that. Now, by the way, he sued for $10 billion. I looked it up. McDonald's spends about $2 billion a year annually on domestic advertising. But certainly he can't say that he's entitled to 5 years of all of McDonald's advertising.
Right.
Right. I imagine that they didn't pay him much at all for this. And they basically said, okay, we're going to put some ads on your crappy TV things and we're good. But he likes to pull, I hate to even say this as a black man, but if there's a black card, he got the ace of spades.
Yes, he does. And he's been doing it for a while. And that's interesting, too. It's interesting because what is he actually doing with all of this power? And is it working? Let's go to you, Attorney Weiss. Does settling mean admitting guilt, or is it often strategic in high-profile cases?
So settling in a civil lawsuit, it specifically says in the settlement document that neither party is admitting to any wrongdoing, any liability. Everything is denied, blah, 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 blah. In the court of public opinion, which is what we care about on this show, most people will say they settled, so they are guilty. But in a legal setting, it has zero bearing. Probably couldn't even be used against McDonald's later on because the settlement is confidential. So you can't go ahead and use it. So look, in a court of public opinion, he won. Woohoo. Right. Who knows what he got? He may have gotten an extra $10,000 a year in his budget. That's a win for him. But in reality, he didn't get that big of a win. No way. Yeah, no way. But hey, look, he's a hero now. Okay. Right. But now watch. Your cheeseburgers are going up from 99 cents to $2.99, and your Big Mac is going from $7.99 to $14.99. So you can thank him.
Yep. Attorney Turner, let me go to you. Can discrimination settlements push meaningful policy change, or do you think this is just about public relations?
So yes and yes. I think that the risk of lawsuits often does help move the needle because it holds people accountable. And I say that even though I've been on the defense side for my entire career. So it does motivate employers to pass policies, to engage in different behavior. Like from now on, McDonald's is going to have a more equitable way of how they spend their ad dollars. That said, there's a lot of moving parts with this right now because we've talked previously about what's happening on a federal policy level about this kind of ideology. But what remains true is that you cannot discriminate based on race because the Civil Rights Act remains in effect, and that's why they sued under under 1983, as Attorney Carter indicated.
But is the policy really going to happen? Because let's just break this down, because this is my question. This is my personal question. I'll take the heat for this. When you sue, just like with the NFL, they partner with Jay-Z. Now Jay-Z picks who performs at the Super Bowl. It's all the hype. But what has really changed when it comes to the owners of the NFL and their discriminatory behavior? Not much. What you see is we go to one person who is known in the Black community that can help neutralize the case. Let them make the Super Bowl. You all can have halftime. Halftime is yours, Black people. Now go pick whoever's hot, have them do a great performance, and that's us dealing with racial discrimination in the front office. No, it's not.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, we've been invited to step and fetch it for years and years, and so the Super Bowl victory isn't all that we need. But I got to have a shout out for Pittsburgh, right? Because the Rooney Rule did originate with the Steelers, which means that they have to consider a diverse slate of candidates. Now, that will also be interesting under these recent policy changes that are coming out from the federal government as well. So I think how the progress that we make in light of these new rules remains to be seen. But big ups to Byron Allen, who got a bag.
But I'm tired of that. I'm tired of people that are influential, who are already wealthy, are getting the bag. There are other Black media sources that need this work. And if he's taking all the work and McDonald's is saying, here, take the work for all Black media, that's not fair. I don't find that fair, and I don't find that equitable at all.
Your Honor, you have to remember this one quick thing, though, and this is something that we don't talk about enough on the show. Lawsuits are not about policy changes, right?
No, yeah, I agree.
What the court decides is only what's before them, brought by the parties before them. And so in this case, the question was, did Byron get to win or did he not get to win? Whether or not the ad industry needs to change, that needs to be done by other efforts.
Right, but I'm saying what happens many times is that these large corporations like McDonald's say, okay, you guys complain, so I'm giving it to Byron Allen. Figure out how to get it from him. Instead of really changing the policies in where you have to submit an RFP, right? Just like everybody else to get these big contracts. Why can't they create within McDonald's a subcommittee or some group to review, specifically Black media RFPs and pick those and share amongst the bigger ones? That's all I'm saying. But okay,
now's not the time to do that, considering the policy changes, because there's a pressure against lifting programs, and that's kind of what you're suggesting. So, like I said, it remains to be seen. The reason why Byron was successful is because he's big enough, like not too big to fail, but he's big enough that the argument was able to reduce to only race based on the options he had.
Got it. I'm still upset about it. All right, everybody, moving along. NBA legend Shawn Kemp pleaded guilty to second-degree assault following a 2023 shooting incident, facing up to 10 years behind bars. The allegation allegedly began over a stolen item, which escalated into a confrontation and ended in gunfire. Kemp's defenders cite years of charitable work, family devotion, and absence of a prior violent record. But critics argue that athletes often evade serious consequences. This plea sends a clear message. Even legends like Shawn aren't above the law. Let's go to you, Attorney Weiss. How does a guilty plea affect sentencing recommendations in this case? Because I thought it was very interesting that he pleaded guilty.
So a lot of times when you plead guilty, they will go ahead and remember, he pled guilty for second-degree assault. So, the guilty plea will often lead to a lighter sentence. Okay. Because it saves judicial resources. It takes the time for trial. Look, the judge will take anything and everything that this man did into consideration. Charitable work, lack of prior violence, the sentencing that he's cooperating, that he's going to rehab, that he's doing, like, all of these things are going to help him get a lesser penalty.
Okay, so how does the intent weigh into the second-degree assault sentencing?
The intent of what him, that he had no intention of doing this, and he was claiming self-defense, saying that he was shot at first. So the second degree assault, he's saying that, you know, I didn't have the intent of doing this. This was self-defense.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. All right. Let's rotate into the last but not least hot topic of the evening.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Can we do one thing and help the alligators here? Because we gotta understand Kemp's situation. His truck gets stolen. Inside his truck is his cell phone and some memorabilia, but the cell phone he uses to track down the truck. So he then goes to a mall in Tacoma and finds these fools in his truck.
Oh,
gets out the car and starts shooting. And the thing for the alligators to remember is, if somebody steals your truck, you can't go shoot them to get it back. All right, I would recommend you you're probably just tired of paying for that truck anyway. I know I'm sick of paying for mine. All right, you can please come steal my truck so I can stop paying for this thing. But even if you don't, you can't do that. And I know you think about it. He's thinking at the time, I should be able to go back and get my stuff back. But the only thing that's going to happen, the best thing that'll happen, is maybe you get your truck back and without having to shoot anybody. But if you shoot somebody,
you know what this case sounds like? It sounds like he might know who that is. Because if someone just stole your truck, went to the mall to hang out, why would you steal somebody's truck and go to a public location with all types of mall security driving around, cameras driving around? I mean, why would he hop out and start shooting over a stolen truck?
Because Shawn Kemp is not that attractive, so he hasn't gotten a lot of brand endorsements like the more handsome basketball players who were in the NBA. He's trying to stretch that little bit of money he made when he was in the league to last a lifetime. So he wanted his truck back, and he engaged in what people call a self-help. And so that's also the lesson for the alligators, as Attorney Carter was saying. Like, if somebody takes anything that belongs to you, unless it's your wife or your husband, no, I'm just joking, you do not engage in self-help. You do not go and engage in violence to get it back. You call the authorities. You say, I know my truck is here. You meet them there, and then you get your truck back. That's what should have happened. But Shawn Kemp ain't no punk, and so he went out there with a gun and was like poppity pop, and now you have what you have.
And it's not, you're protecting and stand your ground, right? If they broke into his house and took his stuff, you have a stand your ground defense. But broke into his truck and drove away, you know, the only thing you could do is stop the truck, grab the guy back into your house, and that. No, never mind.
Daniel Cameron says, now if they steal my truck and pay the note, I might not shoot. That is hilarious. All right, guys, moving along. In an unprecedented move, and it is unprecedented in my opinion, the defense team for music mogul Shawn Diddy Combs rested its case without calling a single witness in his high-profile trial involving sex trafficking, drug distribution, and organized criminal conduct. More than 18 accusers have taken the stand detailing disturbing patterns of abuse over 2 decades. Still, the defense argues the prosecution has failed to prove systemic exploitation. Now, this gamble may speak to Diddy's confidence or the weakness of his case. Can't wait to see what our legal beagles think. With no counter narratives, jurors are left only with the prosecution's harrowing accounts. Is this legal strategy or surrender? All right, we're going to do a round robin on this and get everybody's opinion, starting with you, Attorney Weiss. What are the risks and benefits of not presenting in a defense case in a criminal trial?
So I want one of the comments that Marcel Mama Ozetti put in, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. An innocent man would have took the stand. Okay, that is what the public is saying. If he was innocent, he would have taken the stand. That is what the public thinks. In a courtroom, that's not what we always think, right? So we have to weigh the factors. Did they prove all of these elements? Did they do all of these things? And he and his team probably said, no, they did not. Let's go ahead. Let's roll the dice. And remember, he doesn't need to prove he's innocent. He needs to prove he's not guilty. The state
What's the difference? What's the difference?
The state has to prove that he's innocent, that he's done something. He doesn't need to prove his innocence. He just needs to prove that
he's not guilty of what they brought forward.
You got it. And to me, it seems like there's 5 counts. He's going to get whacked on the 2 having to do with trafficking across state lines. But he's going to walk away from the RICO, and he's going to walk away from the sex trafficking. So it's only the prostitution across state lines. That's where I think they got him.
Attorney Carter, what are your thoughts on this?
I was surprised that they didn't call any witnesses. Now, Diddy was never going to take a stand, ever, nor should he have. Okay, right. But the question was, one, remember they brought that psychologist on to say that, Cassie didn't really want to do these things, even though she said she did because she'd been victimized and all those things. And there was kind of a psychological theory about that. Normally, the defense would bring on their own expert to say, oh, no, this psychologist doesn't know what they're talking about. Because remember, the linchpin of their case with regard to sex trafficking Cassie, the prosecution's case is that she did these things, said she wanted to do these things, but she really, really didn't want to. Mm-hmm. And so that, you're going to have somebody to explain how that's possible. The prosecution called a psychiatrist to do that. I thought the defense would have called a psychiatrist to say that's BS. The other thing I was kind of surprised about, this is a RICO case, right? And basically they're saying the whole organization, all right, all of Bad Boy Records was just, conspiring and all up in these freak-offs. It seems to me that if I was Diddy, with lawyers, I might have called 3 or 4 other people in the company to come in and say, freak off, I don't know what you're talking about. I was selling records, right? There should be somebody there who says this wasn't the industry or right thing. Mm-hmm. The problem with that, though, is half those people probably were in the freak offs, right? So it would have been hard for them to be able to deny some stuff.
Working it.
They would do it.
Or working it. All right, let's go to you, Attorney Turner. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a bold move, but to your point, what they're saying is you did not prove your case. And we're concerned, like Attorney Carter said, if we put other witnesses up and they get subject to cross-examination, that they might strengthen their case. And so for Cassie, who's their star witness, right, I imagine that Diddy's defense in closing argument is going to be, she told you the reason she did these freak-offs is because she loved me. I loved her, and that's why I invited her, and that's why I rocked with her like that. And to Attorney Carter's comments before, because he's an old school pimp, the reason he was buying her Birkin bags and paying her rent and all of that is because she was his woman, not because he was trying to induce her to engage in criminal activity. So that is going to be their biggest defense. And the thing is, it's kind of persuasive. Like, I have some friends who rolled with some rich circles. For some reason, I was just rich adjacent, right? All of them who were involved with people in the music industry or with athletes, they all had bags. They all had jewels. They all had lavish vacations. I know these hoes. They weren't doing it because they were feeling pressured. It was a good time. And so that's what you remember we were talking about how they showed 12 minutes of the freak offs. Uh-huh. I think what was evident, or at least what the defense believed was in there, was people having a good time. But one point I didn't get to make earlier that I wanted to close out with had to do with what we were talking, and this is advice for the alligators. If someone is attempting to get money from them to settle a case, like we were talking about with Fat Joe, don't be confused that you can pay them off and then they won't be compelled to testify in a criminal trial. Once you get called to involved in a criminal investigation, the only way that you can get out of it is for some reason they're not interested in what you have to say anymore. And so, like, if you're a witness to criminal activity, you want to get immunity from them, and then you're going to sing like a canary, even if you were paid $20 million. And
it says that in agreements that it's confidential and you can't be asked about it. You can't answer a question unless you are under a court order or under a subpoena. That's right. Always the way around it. So and Attorney Turner, tell us how you really feel about those women.
Let me ask this question: How important is witness credibility when a defense calls no rebuttal?
I mean, look, it's now it's going to be completely up to the jury. Do I believe what each witness said, or do I think they're full of crap? And it's all going to be based on what the jury says. Look, the defense must have thought that the witnesses weren't credible enough, and that the jury is probably going to say, you know what, we like Diddy, and maybe he was wrong, and maybe he liked freak offs, and maybe he liked this stuff. Maybe he should be punished a little bit, but nah.
All right, Attorney Carter, let me ask you this real quick. One second, Attorney Carter. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the challenge for them with their relationship with Cassie is that what the prosecution's going to say is that sometime it stopped being fun. And you know that based on the video. And so you have to consider the continuum of the relationship. And I guess the defense was confident that they were stronger at the end of that prosecution case than they were without it.
All right, let me go to you, Attorney Carter. Could this strategy backfire in sentencing?
Oh, hell yeah. It could backfire for a number of reasons. Like you said, the jury might be, and this is the thing about it is, the judge is going to instruct the jury, by the way. The fact that the defendant did not testify should not be an indication of guilt. All right? Do not take it. But guess what? It doesn't matter. Look at the chat. All right? Many people just automatically think that. If I was accused of that, I definitely want to get up there and say I didn't do it, right? The problem with Diddy is he can't say I didn't do it, right? Because he did it. All right, we got the baby oil, right? He's slippery now, right? And so all he can say is they liked it. And he's already had people, he already has shown texts and emails that were better evidence than he could say they liked it, right? So he doesn't really have any reason to go up there and testify other than to be asked, why'd you beat him, right? And all the things he did do bad. There's no reason in the world for him to testify, but the fact that he won't, and the fact that they call any witnesses at all, is going to have a couple of jurors are probably going to think he must be trying to hide something. I'd say something. And it's going to be hard, even with the judge's instruction, to overcome that.
Algoriters, let me ask you this question. If Diddy is found not guilty, are we playing Diddy music moving forward in the summer of 2025 and on? Is it a hit or restart, or how do we feel about Diddy? Algoriters, if Diddy is found not guilty, are we listening to Diddy music in summer 2025, and do we move on like nothing happened, or what changes?
We'll listen to the Paul Simon song called "Slip Sliding Away."
Have they done any data crunching about how people's Spotify playlists have been altered by this? Because Danielle Cameron said in that, I mean, we got so many hip hop artists that are being implicated in problems. What are we going to have left? The four of us might have to get together to have a group. I can pop it.
I'm still listening to R. Kelly, all right, every damn day. And here's why, people. I go to the library. I don't know if you know, but we have the Dewey Decimal System. You know that Thomas Dewey was a mother. All right, he was sexually harassed people. He got thrown out of the organization he started, the American Library Association. And guess what? We didn't just start scattering books on the floor. We kept his system. I'm gonna keep the music. We can throw you in jail, but
you're saying you can separate the music from the criminal. All right, here we go. We're going to enter this part of the show where Judge Al Reynolds gives his final verdicts. Fat Joe. And I want you, algorithms, to jump down in the chat and tell me if you finding them guilty or innocent as well. For me, first up is Fat Joe. I'm going to say with Fat Joe, innocent until proven guilty, yes. But the sheer gravity of these claims demands more than denial. Hip-hop house needs cleaning, and silence makes us complicit. So I'm going to find in the court of public opinion Fat Joe to be not guilty. Desiree Perez, when mental health law becomes weapons, families become war zones. This case isn't just about Perez. It's about who holds the power to rewrite someone else's reality. Desiree Perez, we're going to find, the judge here is going to find you guilty of abusing your rights. Byron Allen, he didn't just win, he exposed the price tag of racial equality. But remember, a settlement without structural change is just hush money. Until there is structural change, we're going to find McDonald's guilty as charged. Shawn Kemp, one moment changed everything. And while remorse is real, so is accountability. You can't shoot your way out of a disagreement and expect a standing ovation. Mr. Kemp, we here in Celebrity Court, we're going to find you guilty. Guilty as charged. And Diddy, when your life is on the line, silence speaks volumes. Maybe it's strategy, but maybe it's arrogance. But jurors will fill in the gaps, and they rarely assume the best. So for Diddy, in the court of public opinion, not testifying looks like an admission of what? Guilt. Guilt is charged. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we pulled no punches because justice doesn't tiptoe. Whether it's a rap icon avoiding rebuttal or a media mogul rewriting contracts or a daughter defying her mother's empire, we're witnessing the messy, necessary evolution so that we can find space for celebrity accountability. These aren't isolated scandals. They're warnings. Warnings that power, when unchecked, becomes corruption. Warnings that silence can scream guilt. And warnings that every fan, every jury, and every viewer has a role to play. So here's your call to action. Don't just consume the headlines. Question them. Share them. Debate them. Because in the court of public opinion, your voice is the verdict, and we want it to be heard. This is Celebrity Court of Public Opinion. Thank you for joining us tonight on this Tuesday, where truth goes viral and justice gets loud. Court is now adjourned.